Great. Well, excited to see a lot of people have joined already. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're at. For me, it's a good evening. We're pretty excited to get this webinar started. We have a good lineup in speakers and also folks that will contribute to the panel discussion. As you can see, we are co-hosting this event between Prescouter and John Snow Labs. And we have some external experts that constitute the expert panel discussion. And so as folks are trickling in, we'll get started. Our agenda for today is a really brief introduction, and Jeremy will do that from our side on Prescouter. I don't think he'll even manage to hit 2 to 3 minutes, probably a bit shorter, but that's good. We can save some time there. Followed by an introduction on large language models in pharma and biotech, and just a bit of background setting from Weissel, from John Snow Labs. Then we'll do some brief speaker introductions, followed by the panel discussion of about 35 to 40 minutes. And then we'll open up the chat for the audience so that you can chime in with any questions that you have for our expert panel, followed by a brief closeout. And so by means of introduction, we'll definitely introduce the speakers in a second, but this is co-moderated by myself and Joao from the Prescouter side, both technical directors in the healthcare and life sciences vertical. So we're happy to organize this event for you. And with that, I'll kick things over to Jeremy.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Jeremy Schmier on the Prescouter side. I lead Prescouter's healthcare and life science division from a business development perspective. And Michael, if you could just go to the next slide. I've only got really one slide to go through here. So for those of you who are less familiar with Prescouter, very simply, we are a research consulting firm that helps clients in a variety of ways. But the general theme is that we're helping clients make innovation happen. It really depends on the goals that the client may have, but we're effectively pulling a couple of different levers, whether it be looking at secondary information or primary information coming from a number of different places to help clients develop strategy, make some different recommendations, and explore spaces for which they may be short on bandwidth or expertise. And we're coming in as an extension of the team to help you be a little faster and more efficient when it comes to doing different research. Could be related to new technologies, markets, understanding the landscape of a space that you're less familiar with, or perhaps wondering if you've missed anything, looking for a validation. So there's a lot of different levers that we can pull. The typical client that we're working with is somebody who is a creative type builder, or somebody who's looking at identifying new opportunities. There's much more that we could say about this, but for the interest of time, you can think of us as a consulting firm that works with clients to develop strategy and find new opportunities.
Marvelous. Joao, over to you.
I'm sure everyone has been hearing a lot about ChatGPT and large language models, and for that reason we have Weissel Kocherman. He's the head of data sciences at John Snow Labs, who's co-hosting this event with us, and he's going to go over some background information here and some demystification of what they can and cannot do.
Great, Weissel, floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Prescouter team. This is Weissel, head of data science at John Snow Labs, leading the healthcare and LP team over there for the last 4 years. So, quite relevant to today's topic, I would like to explain what is LLM actually. As you know, ChatGPT take the world by storm, right? So everyone's trying to monetize this. Pharma and healthcare industry is the leading industry in this domain, as you know. And then it could have all this kind of latest technologies have a great impact in this industry, even if this is highly conservative industry, as you guys know, right? So LLMs is basically we can just describe this in one sentence. It's a language model. It's like a neural network with billions of parameters and trained large quantities of unlabeled text around the world, around the web, using self-supervised learning, which means that requiring no labels at all, but creating some signals to learn from the text itself. So LLMs first emerged around 2018. It is on top of BERT architecture. So in 2018, with the advent of GPT architecture by OpenAI, so it is right now taking the world by storm. So it's basically you give a prompt, and then the large language model returns a response. It can be basically say that next word prediction, but it is more than this because of the emerging capabilities of LLMs. Next slide. So as you know, every day for the last 3 months, especially for the last 6 months, every day, every other day, there's a new large language models developed. The ones that you see on the right on the slide is the one that is highlighted are the publicly available ones, and the rest of them are not commercially available. As you know, like as I said, in 2018, the first GPT model announced, and then in 2019, GPT-2. Like funny thing is that when GPT-2, which we don't even look at right now, even we don't even use anywhere, was deemed to be so dangerous that OpenAI didn't even release its largest version like a few years ago. But right now we are talking about GPT-4 and GPT-5. We are not sure about if it's going to happen, but right now ChatGPT is a product on top of GPT 3.5 and GPT-4, and there are other, of course, contenders coming every day. Like a Palm by Google and Llama by Meta, right? And recently, just 2 days ago, Falcon is released, which is totally open source and commercially available, by the way, as of today, which is beating the Llama architectures. So now in the next slides, I'm going to talk a little bit more about what these all terms mean for you. So GPTs is the acronym for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. It is generative because it is predicting the next word. It is pre-trained because it's previously trained of large amount of data, like a trillions of tokens that you can find everywhere on web, on the library, so all the digital content. And then it's a transformer architecture, which is popularized like in 2017 with the BERT architecture. So it's a transformer architecture, and then so far we have 5 versions of GPT released so far: GPT 1, 2, 3, 3.5, and 4. And right now, the latest version claimed to have less hallucination. And then we are able to see the latest open source alternatives of ChatGPT as well. Next one. So the capabilities of GPT or LLMs, let's say, on medical challenging problems are eye-opening, actually. The most popular benchmark was the USMLE, like United States Medical License Exam, right? So whenever there is a medical model, medical large language model, researchers try to evaluate all these models on this kind of benchmark data set, because it's kind of human baseline, which requires years of expertise and training, which not even a college graduate can answer all of them if they don't train in that specific field. So surprisingly, GPT-4 is doing way above the lowest threshold that you can pass this exam. So it is around 86 in GPT-4, like 5-shot and 0-shot. There are different versions. 0-shot means that if you don't explain, if you don't give any example, and if just bluntly ask, it is 0-shot. But 5-shot means that you kind of explain as if it's a junior developer or as if it's a junior intern doctor, right? You say that, okay, I'm going to ask you a question, you are going to answer like this, and then you give 5 examples like this. You kind of prompt, and then you give instructions, and then it tries to answer from now on. So it's called few-shot. So its performance, few-shot performance is amazing. It can even learn during prompting, which is an amazing ability, actually. The next one. Of course, the other popular one which is released like 2 weeks ago, MedPalm 2 by Google. They also evaluated the language model on USMLE, and then it is doing 85% right now, which is an 18% jump from its previous MedPalm. Right now, Palm is powering BARD architecture. So right now, ChatGPT is powered by GPT 3.5 and GPT 4, while BARD by Google is powered by Palm architectures. So it is they evaluated on the 14 different criteria, but even despite this performance jump, they still think that through this evaluation, they found significant gaps when it comes to answering medical questions in real world settings. And then because in healthcare, you need to hit 99-100% sometimes given the use case. That's why this is a perfect tool for automation, and then automating the boring stuff. But when it comes to being precise, you always need the human in the loop to for fact checking. Next one. So of course, medical challenge exams are not the only exams that all these LLMs are benchmarked against. There are other human level benchmarks like SAT exams, bar exams, or some GRE exams, right? All these kind of high level exams that would evaluate highly educated people's level of training or preparation, right? So as you see, GPT 3.5 has already been doing very well. Now GPT-4, all of the exams are easily passed by the model itself. This kind of make me think that maybe we need to reconsider how we evaluate human intelligence, because when they claim this, they compare this with the human intelligence, but I don't think this is how human intelligence is evaluated. But still, this is something they need to evaluate against something, and then this is doing amazing work actually. Next one. So, but most important caveat here is that even the most capable language model out there, which is GPT-4, still answers more than 40% of the questions incorrectly, which means that even the most highly augmented version of the model can still not able to answer 40% of the question. So you always need a human in the loop for fact checking. This is a truthful QA data set. Without even any fine tuning or zero shot, ChatGPT already missed 70% of the questions, as you can see on the right corner of the slide. So which means that even if it's a perfect conversational tool, when you try to apply this to clinical facts, and then like prescribing a medicine given a symptom, ordering the test given a symptom, etc., it is still missing almost half of them, and you would always need human in the loop to make sure that you are doing the correct thing by following the outputs given by the model. Next one. So now let's talk about the benefits, challenges, and opportunities of LLMs in pharma and healthcare industry. So the first one, of course, as a benefit is speeding up the drug discovery, because right now when you like researchers working on a drug discovery needs to analyze enormous amount of data sets, articles, PubMed articles, right? And they need to find the association pattern between all these effects. It is quite time consuming, and then requires too much precision, and then it takes like even one drug, as you know, to getting an FDA approval takes 15 to 20 years, and then you only, like the drug companies, pharmaceutical companies only have a few years to justify the cost spent during this drug development process. So if you even if you reduce that amount by 5, like by let's say like shrink that area, that drug discovery process, it's a huge benefit for the pharmaceutical industry. And LLM can do this way better than human, as long as you provide the right tools and then right guardrails, so that it is not just a predictive tool, but it's an automation tool that could multiply what you can do as a human in 1 second, let's say. And the next one is enhanced clinical decision support, so that there are tons of human-generated content out there that is powering the guidelines, that is powering the decision maker's mind, so that if we can automate this decision support system without checking multiple sources at the same time as a decision maker, this would be another benefit. And personalized medicine, I personally think that this is the most unearthed benefit of LLMs in the pharmaceutical industry. And then the last two, one is medical literature and analysis and education and training, which you can create some avatars and some automate some training process. And then rather than pushing people, trainees to memorize stuff, you can create this kind of assistance with LLM. Next one. And then the challenges, of course, even if you deploy this on your on-prem, even if you don't use OpenAI through API, of course you wouldn't want to use this through API not to share your data with third-party companies. But even if you deploy this on-prem, it's a resource-intensive models that you would need to invest talent and hardware commodities. And you, since these are all black box as well, you cannot control the bias. In the classical machine learning and NLP, you can kind of control by adding some bits and bobs within your pipeline. But in LLMs, which is quite large, so that you don't need other small models, you may not control bias, inherent bias over there, so that you cannot explain well. So this is another biggest concern. The next one. And then the last of all, future potential of LLMs in pharmaceutical industry. So as I said before, drug discovery and personalized medicine are the leading potential benefits of the LLMs in the pharmaceutical industry. One of the job of NLP is, of course, like extracting the information from highly unstructured text. LLMs are a perfect tool for this. You can even extract the adverse drug events reported by the patient in the patient forums or in Twitter, right? So that you can use LLMs to source this information and then inject into your drug development process. And then when you combine LLMs with this text-to-speech and speech-to-text text technologies, you can even create some personal health assistant that could help you throughout the day, especially for the elderly and handicapped people. Next one. Since I'm leading the healthcare and NLP team at Johnson & Johnson, we have been working on this domain for a long time. And then you can just go ahead and then check the website of johnsonjohnson.com. You will see tons of case studies that we run so far with different stakeholders, different large pharmaceutical companies, in which we try to optimize this clinical trial process by injecting our NLP solutions and pre-trained models. So these are all eye-opening, and there are tons of details. If you want to get more about this, I suggest you go there and then check the details, and then you can see how we solve these problems by using LLMs, our own LLMs, and pre-trained NER models, which are trained in-house data sets by human physicians and data scientists. Thank you, everyone.
Marvelous. Thanks a lot, Vaisal. I think this really nicely sets the stage for our discussion in the next few minutes as well. So with that, I want to go immediately into the discussion, which Joao and I will moderate. We'll briefly introduce our panel of experts. Let me just go first because I have a personal connection with Kyle. We met while we were both postdocs at Yale, so figured I'd introduce him on this call. So Kyle's the Alliance Manager of AI Platforms in Silico Medicine. He's about 10 years experience in academic biological discovery research, focusing mainly on genomics to identify new therapeutic targets in infectious disease. He now helps in Silico Medicine to provide AI solutions to top pharma and biotech companies and enabling them in their R&D efforts and really transforming the way that therapeutics are discovered. I don't know if any of you have been following the news, but if you are, probably in Silico Medicine, it triggers an interesting response to you as well. So Kyle has specifically manages services and strategic collaborations for Panomics. So that's the product that allows researchers to explore the unknowns of omics data and interpret them in the context of scientific data generated by scientific community. So thanks for being here, Kyle.
Yes, next
yeah, go ahead.
No, next I'll introduce Amir Emanzadeh. He's a director of software development and AI at Genentech. So Amir holds a PhD in electrical engineering from the University of California at LA. Over his 13 years of work experience, he's been granted several patents at top Silicon Valley companies, including Qualcomm, NVIDIA, and Google. He's a director of a software and digital transformation office at Genentech currently. And he's also an adjunct professor at California Science and Technology University. Most recently, he was the director of data science at Joliet Sciences, where he led a team of data scientists and software developments dedicated to improving different aspects of clinical trials. He's very passionate about employing AI and machine learning techniques to automate and tackle some of pharma and healthcare industry challenges.
Great. Thanks for joining as well, Amir. So then Punity, briefly introduce you as well. Punity is a physician scientist and fervent advocate of transformative potential of AI in reshaping the landscape of healthcare at large. She's currently leading the oncology clinical program at Path AI, which is a leader in AI-powered precision pathology, delivering solutions from wet lab services to algorithm deployment for clinical trials and diagnostic use. She also serves as a member of the board of directors for AI Talos, a pioneer in humanizing AI to bridge the gap between patient and health. So thanks for joining us as well. And then Faisal, we already introduced before. He'll also be part of the panel discussion. So yeah, we'll run through some questions with the panel. We'll give everyone a chance to briefly respond to these questions. We'll have these on the screen here for you as well to follow. And actually, as part of our session, we try to make it as interactive as possible. We'll actually release a poll with a question to you as an audience. So we would love to have your responses to that question as we start out with the first question for our panel. So the first question is, which current applications of AI in pharma do you consider to be most promising and why? And if applicable to your expertise, where does LLMs fit into that? And maybe to kick things off, I would love to hear Amir first.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I would say I categorize these applications onto 3 different verticals. The first one I can think of are applications of computer vision. I would say any sort of image-related app would be a good fit for using AI. Things like image classification and segmentation. For TAs like oncology specifically. Ophthalmology is another one that can benefit a lot from computer vision. The other vertical I can think about is applications of traditional machine learning models and also Bayesian models. One of which that I am very intimate with is called feasibility analysis for clinical trials, which is basically site selection, clinical trial site selection, investigator selection and ranking, and patient enrollment forecasting, where you can tap into different sources of data, including operational data, real-world evidence data, and even patient-level data, develop models for ranking of the countries you want to focus on, and then narrow down onto clinical trial sites that you should focus on for a given study, and then pick the right or the more efficient investigators for your trial, and also develop models for forecasting patient enrollment, which is very critical for clinical trials. The reason I'm very interested in this domain is one of the biggest challenges that you face is, at least in the US for trials, is under recruitment, and or even like for a big proportion of clinical trials, you don't even manage to recruit any patients. So which basically wastes a lot of money. In oncology, if you can, just a quick stat, running a clinical trial in oncology in the US costs about $5 to $10 million a day. So if you can do a better job in those domains, it really helps the companies who are targeting for releasing their molecules, and also definitely the patients. And the last one is obviously NLP applications, wherever you have text data, including protocols, SAPs, SOPs, even like the MOP data where you collect for your clients in medical affairs. Those are really good areas to apply LLMs and generally NLP technology for extracting insights, text summarization, and things like sentiment analysis.
Great. That's a great overview. Thanks for that, Amir. Kyle, do you have any thoughts from your end? What do you see as the current applications where AI can really provide a lot of value for pharma companies and biotech companies?
Yeah, a lot of really good points were made there. When I think about what is promising, I like to think about impact in terms of keeping the end in mind and the problems being solved. And at least from our perspective, what we work on, we consider a success to be successful clinical trials. And so I think about the statistics regarding why clinical trials fail, with the biggest reasons often being inadequate efficacy and safety concerns. So, we need the right target and the right drug. I understand clinical trials are important, complex, saving money, that's all very important. But I would say from my perspective, the most promising would be things like understanding biological networks. So LLMs fit in really nicely here, things like data integration analysis, network reconstruction, even in some cases, visualization and target identification. I'd also say de novo drug design. So in that area, I think there's been some really huge strides in reinforcement learning and generative models to generate molecular structures with specific desired properties, such as efficacy and safety, as well as drug repurposing. So those would be my top three.
Great. And actually, we did a poll with the audience briefly before we started this question, just sharing the results. And it's actually interesting. You both indicated there's a lot of areas of opportunity. It seems that folks on this call also feel like it is definitely quite spread across the board, with a focus actually on drug discovery, where people feel really there's a big opportunity there. So let me just stop sharing those results and kick things over to Joao for the next question.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. And so I think maybe one interesting question here would be also thinking about where do you see the biggest impact, right? So it could be cost, time saving, resources, anything new, but where is the biggest impact likely to come of AI in pharma, both currently, and can you describe a little bit more about that impact?
Yeah, maybe Punity, you want to go first?
Sure. So in pharma, we have something called Irum's law, which is the exact opposite of Moore's law. And in as brief as I can be, it's basically an observation that the drug discovery or bringing innovative drugs to the market is getting slower and more expensive over time, despite improvements in technology. We have high throughput screenings for target identification. We have computational drug designs. We have a lot of technological improvements in the past decade or so. Still, right now, it takes around $2.8 billion US dollars and roughly around 15 years to get that drug into market, an innovative drug. The biggest impact, I believe, of AI in pharma would be to beat Irum's law. There is potential, untapped potential in AI-powered tool. Coming from an oncology world, and I think Amir just mentioned about that most of the times, the biggest challenges oncology trials face is not enough patients. So if you're looking at how AI can help, this is just an example. We can, using different AI models, devise AI-based screening tools, clinical decision support systems, even patient education and awareness tools, which can help shorten the time it actually takes to enroll patients in the trial. Now, this, at the same time, AI can also be used during the oncology trials for biomarker discovery, for companion diagnostic discoveries. And this is just one example. But I truly believe that the impact will affect if you shorten, especially in oncology, the time it actually takes to bring the innovative drug to the market.
Great. Thanks for that. I think it also nicely plays back to what Amir was saying earlier about cost and time saving. Maybe Amir, do you have any other? I really like that stat that you gave on the 1 day clinical trial cost. Are there any other ones, sort of impacts that you see beyond shortening the time to that clinical trial?
Yeah, I mean, there's more low-hanging fruits out there. I would say another one is improving diversity across clinical trials, which is actually now a mandate by FDA. I think that's a big one. It's not really super challenging. It's all about putting the right data sources together, and the models are all available. You know, it's just, you just have to do the analytics part of it. Basically, what you want to do is you want to do a better job in recruiting like a more diverse population of patients, and put like a more diverse patient cohort together for your trial. And another interesting piece of stat I know on this is in the US, we know that about 15% of the population are African Americans. But in oncology, again, I think only less than, if I'm not mistaken, about less than 5% of patients are African American. And that's really, that tells you that what's going on at the moment, and it's pretty bad. So if you can tap into the right data sources and put build up a relevant analytics on top of it, you can actually plan upfront and do a better job in recruiting your patients. And also even another, from a different angle, if you want to look at it, you can do a better job in actually recruiting your principal investigators as well. You can have a more a diverse population of whoever you're targeting, including patients, investigators, and again, I mean, it's going to be huge. Everybody's going to benefit from it. Your molecules are going to be more impactful, and in terms of efficacy and safety, and you cover a broader audience of patients by building up these analytic pipelines using different data sources.
Great. Yeah, and that I think that actually is a nice segue to next question that we have, which is about ROI. So a lot of the clients that we speak with at Prescouter, but also other folks I've heard in anticipation of this webinar, they're curious to understand a bit more about, suppose companies are trying to implement AI, maybe a platform or more sophisticated internal data lake coupled to NLP, for instance. How can one go about measuring the return on investment or sort of the performance of that to convince companies, stakeholders, or investors in the value of it? And so maybe the first I'd like to hear about this is Vaisal, because I know you work a lot on implementation of AI with some of your customers. Can you tell us a bit more about how you think return on investment can be measured upon implementation?
Yeah, this is a great question, actually, coming from this implementation background, actually, which we are dealing with every day with other stakeholders, other companies, to help them develop in-house solutions for them. It's a perfect use case right now. So in internal investments, of course, especially in the pharmaceutical industry, is a long term. It's not easy to see the returns in a few years. So it's really hard to convince the stakeholders. But the trend that I have been observing lately is that since the advent of LLMs and the popularity of it, all the key decision makers that have no technical background before right now have some rough understanding what LLM can do, which is a great, actually, because it makes our life easier right now, while like the technical people's life easier, while we try to explain all these complex ideas and theories and then reasons to the key decision makers in the C-level managers, right, to the C-level managers. But right now, since they know kind of understand the potential of LLMs, so it's easy to convince them if we develop some quick POCs with LLMs and then go to and then explain. So it makes them highly curious and then passionate to develop, to see the next steps over there. So but since installing, like setting this up is highly time-consuming and expensive. And for the healthcare industry, you cannot just use third-party APIs like OpenAI APIs. Of course, they always hesitate whether they need to invest on this or not. But right now, the pace of development in open source community is too fast that every day there is a new capable, smarter LLMs develop and then release commercially available. And then there are some quantization technologies are also methods are also developed, so it makes all this deployment process in-house easy for even the low, even the mediocre technical people. So right now we can easily ship all these open source models, LLMs, into companies on-prem and then let them test by developing some quick UIs so that they can see the results immediately. If they like it, they decide if they need to invest more or not, because even if you shrink that drug development process or clinical trial management process by half or by 10, right? You could save millions of dollars. So and then with the open source community, with the help of open source community, right now the only cost is the skill set, like a human resource plus hardware cost, which is kind of already there most of the time.
Yeah. And so I guess the summary of that is that the barriers have become lower thanks to the advent of some of the popular GPT kinds of models. Kyle, how does that work for you? How do you typically go about measuring ROI with some of your clients? And how do you look against to convince company stakeholders to invest in AI, and especially in that in silico stage?
This is a very interesting question. So what makes implementing any new initiative difficult at times is the vast number of business and scientific considerations that need to be integrated and accepted by really diverse stakeholders at an organization, right? So organizations, at higher levels, they think about mission and vision and impact. And so different organizations will think about the metrics that they see as relevant to their success very differently depending on what their mission is. But there's also their proprietary technology, how they see them having a competitive edge in the world, what is their current portfolio. So thinking more in the business context of an organization often has a notable influence on the selection of the ROI, the metrics being used. But thinking about usually when we step into a situation like that, we think about what's the main business outcome we're meant to influence, and what's the process specifically that we're meant to improve with the use of AI, and then how do those metrics change over time, and how are we going to measure that? So with any organizational change, I'd say defining really clear objectives, setting specific standards for data quality and determining data availability. That's always where we start with every project. Defining things like data governance and privacy are always really kind of go no-go decisions, and very, very important to have covered, as well as things like cross-functional collaboration. So which teams are going to have a say at different gates for different milestones throughout the project, as well as determining who has the talent and expertise to make the decisions to move to the next step. So really, I'd say it's more about the plans than the specific metrics, in my opinion, because at the end of the day, you're trying to build trust that the technology you're trying to implement is going to get you to the next business goal. And in order to build that trust, you have to see the plan that's going to get you from A to B to C to, let's say, increase revenue or a new target in the pipeline, whatever the case might be.
Yeah. And I think some of those are more easy to measure. I guess you already demonstrated with in silico medicine that there are new targets in some folks' pipeline now. So those are qualitative measurements that are easy to do. They are or they aren't there. Some of the other ones may be a bit more tricky to measure. I think that very nicely segues us to the next question. Joao, you want to take care of that one?
Yeah. I think the next step is probably thinking what are some of the best practices to actually successfully implement this AI in pharma and biotech, and maybe Amir, probably makes sense to start with you as you've been doing it in that quality.
Sure. A couple of things I can mention here. One is if you want to in-house some of these capabilities, what you really need is in-house software teams. So you just have to accept that. And this is not like the main expertise of pharma biotech companies, but they need to do that. You need to build up like in-house software teams, and the leadership needs to understand this is a different domain. It's a new domain, but then, there's no way in my mind around it, because as Kyle mentioned, and other people as well, you don't want to share your data. I mean, it's very, there's a lot of privacy related issues. So you want to own your data, you want to protect it. So you have to in-house some of these models. And then that means you have to build up software products. So that's the first thing you got to do. So you have to build up software teams and then implement the right software development practices. The other really, really important thing I can think about is, even if you do a really great job in developing software products, but you do not think about your stakeholders and specifically change management on their side, your products are not going to be used internally. As you can imagine, there has been, especially on the pharma side, a lot of legacy and history and the traditional way of doing things. And now what you're asking these stakeholders is basically be open to adopting these very, very cutting edge new technologies. Their first impression is they're scared for sure, and they get threatened in their mind. So you got to be able to convince them that what you really are trying to do is help them improve their efficiencies, not replace them with these models. And I think, especially on pharma side, that's really the case. Maybe in some domains, people think when you talk about automation or AI, they think about replacing jobs and maybe becoming outdated. But in the pharma domain, I would say it's mainly about improving the current practices, but you always would have human in the loop aspect of it. And because of that, if you could do a good job in explaining what your models do and how they can be adopted to improve the current business practices, then over time, your stakeholders are going to buy into these new ideas and adopt the new technologies. But that's a huge challenge in my mind anyway.
Thank you, Amir. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I'm curious, Puniti, do you agree with these points? Is there something else that you'd bring as something to keep in mind when trying to successfully implement AI?
Adding to what Amir already said, healthcare is it's a regulated market, and there are clinical, regulatory, ethical considerations and compliance issues that we have to keep in mind during the development of the tool and also in the implementation of AI anywhere in healthcare. And emphasizing it again, whatever tool we plan to adopt or implement in healthcare has to be an AI assist approach instead of an AI-based approach. The human has to be in the loop, and that's a regulatory requirement. Any tool that is developed and will be utilized in clinical decision-making, in clinical research, in clinical trials, needs a clearance from our regulatory bodies. And that is essential, because at the end of the day, it's healthcare, it's human lives that we are talking about. So the skepticism that we are getting from regulated bodies may not be fully understandable by, say, for example, a tech company working on an AI tool. But in a regulated market like healthcare, pharma, medical devices, biotech, this is something that we need to keep in mind.
Thank you. And then, Kyle, I guess I'm curious to hear from you here as well. As someone that is actually providing some of these services, what is your take in maybe some of the points that Amit brought up in terms of having strong teams that can build things internally? How do you see this?
Yeah, this is a really interesting question, because I think things in the last several years are changing so quickly. So first, sort of on a macro level, some companies definitely are establishing this expertise in-house. So I'm thinking of like Novartis and Microsoft, 2019. There's also other companies rapidly gaining capabilities through the acquisition of biotech companies. I'm thinking of Genentech Roche 2021 of Prescient Design, right? I met some of those people at a conference here recently in Boston, or BioNTech acquiring Institute. While on the third arm, some biopharma companies are establishing partnerships. So I know in Silicon Medicine has a recent collaborations with Sanofi and Novo Nordisk, but there's plenty of other examples: Recursion, Genentech, Roche, Exscientia with Sanofi. But the trends are that there's been a decline in new AI-based R&D, research and development companies. And the number of partnerships has really gone up. I'd say maybe the last 5 years. So it seems like maybe there will be more merger and acquisition activity soon, but there's certainly signs that some companies will go out of business altogether, and there's some kind of consolidation happening, especially with recent news of some people letting go. So those are sort of the macro trends that I'd see. And we're certainly hearing, a lot of signs of new partnerships coming out.
Great, thanks for that. So we have a second and last poll for the audience, which we'll drop in a second, which is actually this question, which we're kind of curious to address with the panel as well, but trying to understand, in order for pharma or biotech company to maximize the value of AI, would you advise them to build or buy? And then how would that impact the timeline for a minimal viable product? And of course, curious to hear from everyone on the call and our experts. And let me just start out by asking Amir. I know you have quite some experience with the build piece. Can you maybe shed your light on this question? What do you think is a good strategy for companies to consider, and how does the choice for building or buying impact the minimal viable product timeline?
Sure. So personally, I'm not interested in any sort of a black box model. I'm not going to buy any off-the-shelf model from anybody that I cannot understand what's going on inside it. So I'm like the approach I've been taking is, I would say, a hybrid one. I have tried to build up software teams, software/AI teams internally, but at the same time, as Kyle pointed out, you have to partner with the right companies or expertise who have more experience in the areas that you're interested in. You have to be able to do that. And so what I ended up doing is internalize the core team, and then augment the team by adding or bringing in expertise and services from other software companies or AI companies who could help me with my solution. So of course, like in any software solution, you're going to have a whole bunch of different building blocks, and you cannot be expert in all. And it takes time, at least practically, if you want to build up something that, or at least some sort of MVP that people start using quickly, you have to do a hybrid approach because, like I said, we're not Google or Microsoft who have tens of years of experience in developing software products. We are pharma biotech, so you got to admit it. You got to understand what your strengths are and then what you need to improve on, and focus on building up over time the capabilities you do not have, but at the same time be cautious of time. As you know, I briefly touched up on that point. You don't have infinite amount of time either, because your leaders are sitting there. They need to see results, and to some extent, it's understandable. But at the same time, there is a balance there. These are new technologies, so it takes time to build up something and show like ROI and show the impact. But at the same time, you don't have infinite amount of time either. So you got to balance it out, and that's how I've been doing it.
Interesting. That's a good point. I guess the way I perceive it is that with platforms or black boxes, there's sort of a limit to that ROI. It may be easier to implement, but it reaches its limits because maybe you're not able to customize or tailor to your own internal data sources.
You would not be able to maintain them for sure in the long run if you don't understand what's going on inside. So yeah, that's the main reason I'm not interested in those kind of solutions.
Makes sense. Punity, what is your thoughts on this question, build or buy?
Definitely, positively hybrid. It's for the very same reasons that Amir just mentioned. We need to know how the tool works. From purely from a clinical or a regulatory perspective, we need to know what the tool does. We need to know what was the data input. We need to know what it was trained on. Everything is important because like we had a discussion about it earlier, we want to avoid bias we don't want AI to introduce a bias. So if you don't know how that was built, we don't know if we can trust the output there. So I truly believe it has to be a collaborative endeavor with all partners working together. The big pharma, that's not their expertise. Like AI technology, that is not what big pharma is known for. There are specific players, AI experts in the market. So it's a collaborative effort, has to be. There is issues of who owns the data, what the IP would be, but that is something which I think we can sort out together. But taking the expertise from the AI experts, working along with the pharma people, knowing at each step what is happening, what data is coming in, that'll increase our faith in the tool. And like if we have the faith, then we can pitch it to our investors and leadership.
Okay, that makes sense. And I think I don't know if everyone saw the poll results, but it's quite kind of funny that folks here as well have a feeling that a hybrid approach is probably going to be of interest as well for their particular situation or company. So we have a few minutes left on the clock. I want to be respectful of everyone's time.
Michael, I think Kyle wanted to talk.
Okay. I didn't see the hand raise. Sorry, I only have two videos at a time. Yeah, if you can keep it short, Kyle, that'd be great.
I'll keep it very short. I completely agree with everything it said. This is I just want to point out, this is a very exciting time in this area because there's like over 50 of these huge partnerships that have been announced, and we're sort of seeing, is the proof really in the pudding? So following these clinical trials is really going to determine the outcome, of a lot of people and lives and companies. And I would look to those and sort of keep a scoreboard to everyone listening, which trials are winning and which are not.
Great, thanks for that. So I'll kick things over for the rapid questions to Joao, but just wanted to highlight that for the questions that we won't manage to respond to, because we have about 10, I think, in total, and we'll just address a few, but those ones that we can't address, we'll answer over email for sure. So Joao, to you.
Yeah, I think one that it's probably in a lot of people's minds is, do you know of any concrete successful examples of AI-driven work in pharma thus far? Maybe Amir, is it something you reckon you could share here on your knowledge?
Yeah, I'm definitely aware of a couple of different pharma companies who have implemented in-house algorithms for feasibility analysis. Historically, pharma companies have been very much dependent on CROs to do that for them, but they all have started to see the value of in-housing these technologies for bringing down the cost and owning, the whole analytics. So definitely that's one of the areas I've seen those. And on the NLP side, protocol digitization, I've seen in several different bio companies, in-house tools for digitizing protocols and extracting information accurately enough from clinical trial protocols. So these are the two areas that definitely I've seen software products which are being used by internal stakeholders.
Great. Thank you. Kyle, I see you want to adapt. Let's try and keep it very short again. Sorry for that.
Yep, no problem. So typical preclinical program is what, like 430 million out of expense, maybe $1 billion capitalized, can take 3 to 6 years. We went from target discovery initiation to phase 1 in under 30 months with AI controlling it end-to-end target discovery, generative molecule design, and clinical trial design as well. So there's your example.
What was the cost save on that?
Really good question. So the whole preclinical development program from hypothesis to novel target discovery took, the budget was like 2.6 million. So, and then there's an additional 12 months to get the preclinical drug candidate through phase 0 to the phase 1 clinical trial. So it's like a few magnitudes cheaper.
Impressive.
Another one we got that I think is interesting. Do you agree that AI-powered lead identification or lead optimization is more advanced for small molecules than biologics? Maybe Kyle, is that something? Do you want to chime in?
That's a really good question. I know our wheelhouse is more in small molecules as up to this point. So I'm not really sure I'm personally in a position to answer relative to biologics, though. That's a really good question.
Anyone else on the panel wants to try and tackle this one?
I'll take a hit. So, biological molecules per se are more difficult, even without AI. There are a lot of different parameters beyond small molecule. If you have a high throughput screen, you can use AI, go over millions of targets and go over small molecules. Its lead optimization is much easier. With biologics, it's very complex inherently. If it's a hybrid, if it's completely human, if it's part mouse, part murine, part human. So there are different factors to it, which probably is the main reason why AI-powered lead optimization for biologics is more difficult. I have faith in AI that will catch up and reach a stage where it will happen for biologics. We just had to probably wait a few more years.
Right. And I think maybe, I think this also answers one of the other questions regarding protein folding, strengths of AI in protein folding and peptide identification. I guess one of the questions was whether it also applies for other macromolecules or nutrients. And so that's, I think it's sort of in the same sentiment. So thanks for asking those questions and adding them to the Q&A. For the ones that we weren't able to answer, we'll definitely get to answering them. I just want to take the opportunity with being on top of the hour to thank all the panelists for being part of the panel today. It was really nice to hear from all the different angles, your responses, and of course also want to thank everyone for joining and listening in. And we're very happy to talk to you about some of the things that we do at Prescouter. I just added here a QR code that you can scan it, put you into touch with Jeremy. And so for everyone who's interested, feel free to reach out. And I wish you all a great rest of your week. And it's very nice to be able to organize this for you all.
Thank you for having us.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Yeah, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.